Just now, on the Taiwan issue, China has issued its sternest warning to the world, especially to the United States. Let's start with this piece of news. Yesterday, Cong, China's permanent representative to the United Nations, sent a letter to UN Secretary-General António Guterres regarding Sanae Takaichi's recent statements on China. The core and most consequential message in this letter is, if Japan dares to use force to intervene in the Taiwan Strait situation, it will constitute an act of aggression. China will resolutely exercise the right of self-defense granted by the UN Charter and international law, and firmly safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity. How should we interpret this? If we compare this to what China's embassy in Japan posted on social media yesterday, we can see even more. For convenience, here is the statement from the embassy. The UN Charter contains specific enemy state clauses, which stipulate that if any of the fascist or militarist states Germany, Italy, Japan, undertake any steps toward renewed aggression, the founding members of the United Nations, China, France, the Soviet Union, the UK, and the US, have the right to take direct military action against them without Security Council authorization. What can we see when comparing the two? There are similarities and there are differences. Where are the similarities? Both mention aggression. The term is used frequently today, but its definition can be complicated because aggression can take many forms. For our purposes, what Japan has been doing recently resembles something that happened 41 years ago. On January 5, 1984, in Tegucigalpa, capital of Honduras and neighbor of Nicaragua, something happened. At 2 a.m., a mysterious man with a cold expression burst into the home of Edgar Chamorro, a leader of the Nicaraguan Contra rebels. Chamorro never learned the man's real name. He only knew that he was the CIA's deputy station chief, known locally simply as George. George threw a press release at him. The statement claimed that Chamorro's rebel forces had laid naval mines in multiple Nicaraguan ports. Chamorro was bewildered. They hadn't done it. They didn't even have mines. But George didn't care. He coldly ordered Chamorro, release the statement immediately and beat the Nicaraguan government to it or prepare to meet God. Not long after, ships in Nicaraguan ports originally sailing safely suddenly exploded. Some were damaged. Others were sunk outright. A Dutch dredger, a Panamanian cargo ship, a Nicaraguan fishing vessel, a Liberian sugar transporter, and even a Soviet tanker carrying 250,000 barrels of crude oil were hit. Many crew members were killed or injured. The world was stunned. Nicaragua was furious. Then came the twist. Chamorro himself stepped forward and revealed the entire operation. Why? Because the Americans never really liked Chamorro. They preferred another Contra leader, Adolfo Calero. After using Chamorro as a scapegoat for the mining operation, they discarded him. Betrayed and furious, Chamorro turned against them. He handed the Nicaraguan government all the documents, especially the press release. George gave him along with more inside information. The truth shocked the world. The Nicaraguan rebels had not mined the harbors. The Americans had. So in 1984, Nicaragua took the United States to the International Court of Justice (ICJ) in The Hague. Important note, unlike many pseudo-courts or tribunals that misuse the word international, such as the one involved in the South China Sea arbitration, the ICJ is legitimate, one of the 6 principal organs of the UN, and the world's most authoritative judicial body. Chamorro testified before the ICJ. The evidence became ironclad. The ICJ ruled 15-0 that the US directly committed aggression by mining the harbors, and the US indirectly committed aggression by supporting the Contra rebels. The court ordered the U.S. to pay Nicaragua over $12 billion in damages. As expected, the US refused and still hasn't paid, claiming it does not recognize the ruling. But the case clarified the definition of aggression in international law. A state using force directly is aggression. A state supporting an armed rebellion against another state is also aggression. Now let's link this to what Japan has just said and done. On November 7th, Sanae Takaichi stated in Japan's parliament that if China deploys naval forces and uses force against Taiwan, Japan may face a survival-threatening situation, allowing the self-defense forces to exercise collective self-defense. In this short statement, she managed to fulfill both forms of aggression established in the Nicaragua case. 1. Taiwan is China's territory. Japan has recognized this for decades. If Japan threatens military action against China over Taiwan, that is aggression. The 1972 China-Japan joint communique is explicit. Japan fully understands and respects that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China. 2. Saying the SDF may use force on Taiwan's behalf means supporting a rebel faction. This is also aggression, and the parallel with Nicaragua goes deeper. The US intervened in Nicaragua because the 1979 revolution overthrew its favored puppet government. The remaining loyalists formed armed resistance, the Contras. This is remarkably similar to the Taiwan situation. In 1979, the Sandinista National Liberation Front captured Managua and took power. The ICJ made its position clear. The current government is legitimate. The former ruling faction is a rebel group. Supporting them is aggression. International law doesn't care about former regimes. This principle was established over 40 years ago. Of course, international law is only as strong as the power enforcing it. Nicaragua had the law on its side, but it was too weak to make the U.S. comply. But if the injured state is powerful, one of the 5 good men, the 5 permanent members, then such legal rulings provide moral and legal high ground for decisive action. That is why both China's UN mission and China's embassy in Japan invoked the term aggression so pointedly. Now, the differences between the two messages. The embassy in Japan focused on the enemy state clauses of the UN Charter. This implies that if a former Axis power like Japan shows signs of renewed aggression, China can take military action without Security Council approval. But China's letter to the UN Secretary-General emphasized the right of self-defense under international law. These differ. Enemy state clause: China can act even before Japan uses force. China does not need Security Council authorization. China does not need to report afterward. Right of self-defense triggered only after being attacked must report to the Security Council. So why, when addressing the Secretary-General, did China use self-defense instead of the much more convenient enemy state clause? Because the warning is aimed at Japan on the surface, but the real target is the United States. Japan is a defeated Axis power, so the enemy state clause applies. The U.S. is a victorious allied power, so the clause does not apply. Thus, China uses Japan as an example, but the strategic message is directed at the US. And any other country considering intervention, interfering in Taiwan is aggression. China will exercise the right of self-defense. We are not afraid of war. Another important detail, China not only sent the letter to the Secretary-General, it distributed copies to all UN member states. This is a public declaration of China's bottom line, both a counter to Japan and a strategic preparation for national reunification. It sets the moral and legal groundwork in advance, a clear message for just cause. Those who understand international politics will see the real meaning. This is China's sternest warning, yet directed at all who might intervene, especially the United States. If you are not afraid of dying, go ahead and try.